Windows, let's have a look at the process that happens when a user is authenticated by a domain controller in a domain. When a user is authenticated by a domain controller, an access token is generated for that user. The access token can then be used to access other resources on the network. Inside the access token is the user's SID. When this access token is presented to another system, say a Windows server, the SID inside the token can be used by the server to identify who the token belongs to. The server will then look at its access lists to see if that SID has access. However, as we will see in later videos, good administrators use groups to provide users access and make administration easier. If this user was a member of the sales group, for example, once again, as we have learned, the sales group has its own SID. It's a simple matter of adding the sales group SID to the user's token when it is created. Now, when the token is presented to another system, the other system checks its access list. In this case, the sales group is in the token and on the server's local access list, so the user will be given access. You may be asking yourself, what would happen if the user was removed from the sales group after the token had been generated? The answer is the user would still have access because the security token contains the SID for the sales group. The same applies if the user was added to, say, the marketing group after the token was created. The user would not have access to any of the marketing files because the security token does not contain the SID for the marketing group. To fix problems like these, the user simply needs to log off and log back on. When they log back on, a new token will be generated with the new security information. Before I start looking at how to use user accounts in Active Directory, first I want to look at the naming standards that you will see when using accounts in Windows. The old naming standard that dates back to Windows NT is domain/username. This was based on the older NetBIOS naming standard, which did not support as many characters as DNS does. The newer standard supports the same naming format that you would use for an email address. For example, user@example.com. Windows refers to this naming format as user principal name. In some cases, the domain name may be different from the username used to log in. For example, a lot of companies may use an internal DNS name ending in local rather than com. Active Directory supports any principal name mapped to any user. Regardless of which system you use, you will need to work out a system of naming that minimizes the number of naming conflicts. An example is first initial dot last name. Some companies will even go for longer names like first name dot last name, or a simpler standard like last name first initial. The longer the login name, the less likely you will have two users with the same login. For example, if Jane and John Doe both worked for the same company, two of the naming standards here would generate the same login name. In this case, an administrator would need to change one of the logins. A lot of administrators will simply add a number to the end of one of the logins to make them different. When creating a new user, a pre-Windows 2000 login name will automatically be chosen for you. This name will be used by older clients. Besides Windows systems like Windows 9X and NT, this may also include some older non-Microsoft operating systems. Unless you have any old operating systems, in most cases you won't need to worry about the pre-Windows 2000 logon name. The reason I bring it up is that it is limited to 20 characters. In your naming standard, if you need to use the pre-Windows 2000 logon names, consider the 20-character limit when thinking about how your naming standard will work. This covers the basis of accounts in Windows and Active Directory. In the next video, I will look at how to create a new user account in Active Directory. Thanks for watching.